To truly achieve something in life, you must first understand the story behind the struggle. It's through knowing the journey, the setbacks, and the hard work that you find the strength to keep going. The story is all about that. In the small, quiet town of Coalwood, West Virginia, life was centered around one thing: coal. Coalwood was a company town, meaning that nearly everything in the town, the houses, the stores, even the church, was owned by the coal company. The town's entire existence revolved around the coal mines that provided work and income for the people who lived there. It was 1957, and the world was changing rapidly, with technology and science making leaps forward. But in Coalwood, life remained much the same, with the daily rhythm marked by the shift whistle of the mines. Homer Hickam, a high school student, was born and raised in Coalwood. His father, John Hickam, was the superintendent of the coal mine, a position that carried a lot of responsibility and respect. John was a hard, practical man who had spent his entire life working in the mines. He was deeply committed to his work and expected Homer to follow in his footsteps. For John, the coal mine was not just a job, it was a way of life, a tradition passed down from generation to generation. He believed that Homer's future lay in the mines, just like his own. However, Homer was different. While he respected his father and understood the importance of the mines to their family and the community, he didn't see himself spending his life underground. Homer's dreams were much bigger, though they hadn't fully formed until one fateful night in October 1957. That was the night the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, into space. The event made headlines around the world, and for the people of Coalwood, it was a mix of wonder and fear. The sight of that tiny, glowing dot moving across the night sky sparked something inside Homer. For the first time, he felt a deep yearning to reach beyond the coal mines, beyond Coalwood, and into the stars. Inspired by Sputnik, Homer decided to pursue a dream that was as vast as the sky itself: building rockets. It was a dream that seemed impossible for a boy from a small coal mining town, but Homer was determined. He didn't know much about rockets, but he had a strong desire to learn. He began by reading everything he could find about rocketry, which wasn't easy in a town like Coalwood where most people were focused on coal, not space. Homer wasn't alone in his dream. He recruited his friends, Roy Lee, Odell, and Quentin, to join him. Quentin, the smartest boy in school, became the brains of the operation. Together, they formed a group they called the Rocket Boys. They started experimenting with building rockets, using whatever materials they could find. Their early attempts were far from successful. Their rockets often exploded, veered off course, or failed to launch at all. The boys were inexperienced, and the task of building a working rocket was much more difficult than they had imagined. The Rocket Boys faced a lot of challenges, not just with the technical aspects of rocketry but also from the people around them. The people of Coalwood didn't understand what the boys were trying to do. To them, rocketry seemed like a foolish, dangerous hobby that was distracting the boys from their studies and their responsibilities. The town was steeped in tradition, and most people believed that the boys should be focusing on their future in the mines, not wasting time with rockets. Homer's father was particularly unsupportive. John Hickam was a practical man, and he saw no future in rocketry. He believed that Homer was being distracted from the real world, and he worried that his son was neglecting his responsibilities. The tension between Homer and his father grew as Homer became more and more focused on his rockets. John couldn't understand why Homer was so obsessed with something that seemed so impractical and far-fetched. This created a rift between them, as John wanted Homer to be serious about his future in the mines, while Homer wanted to chase his dreams of space. Despite the doubts and obstacles, the Rocket Boys didn't give up. They knew they needed help, and they found it in an unexpected place. Miss Riley, their science teacher, saw potential in the boys' project. Unlike most of the town, Miss Riley understood the importance of science and education. She believed that the boys' interest in rockets could lead to something much bigger. Miss Riley encouraged the boys to keep working on their rockets, and provided them with textbooks and resources that helped them understand the science behind rocketry. She also introduced them to Mr. Bukowski, a mine worker with an interest in engineering, who helped the boys with the technical aspects of building rockets. With Miss Riley's guidance and Mr. Bukowski's help, the Rocket Boys began to make progress. They learned from their mistakes and refined their designs. Slowly, their rockets began to fly higher and more accurately. Each successful launch brought them a step closer to their dream. The boys worked tirelessly, spending long hours after school and on weekends perfecting their rockets. Their dedication started to pay off as their rockets became more reliable and reached higher altitudes. However, their journey was not without setbacks. One day, after a particularly successful launch, the boys were shocked to find themselves in trouble with the law. A wildfire had broken out in the area, and their rocket experiments were blamed. The authorities believed that one of the Rocket Boys' launches had caused the fire. Homer was arrested, and the future of their rocket experiments seemed in jeopardy. It was a low point for Homer and his friends, who had worked so hard to pursue their passion. Determined to prove their innocence, Homer and Quentin used their knowledge of rocket trajectories to calculate that their rocket couldn't have caused the fire. They figured out that the true culprit was an old, unexploded military rocket that had been left in the area. With this information, they were able to convince the authorities that they weren't responsible for the fire. Homer was released, and the boys were allowed to continue their experiments. This incident only strengthened their resolve to succeed. As the Rocket Boys continued to improve their rockets, they decided to enter their project in the regional science fair. Winning the science fair would mean a lot to the Rocket Boys. It would validate their efforts and prove to the town that their dreams were worth pursuing. It would also open up opportunities for scholarships, which was important for boys from a town where most futures were tied to the mines. The boys worked harder than ever to prepare for the science fair. They knew that this was their chance to show everyone what they were capable of. On the day of the fair, they were nervous but determined. They presented their rockets and launched them in front of the judges. The rockets flew beautifully, and the judges were impressed by the boys' knowledge and the success of their project. The Rocket Boys won first place at the regional science fair, a victory that felt like a huge accomplishment. This win qualified them to compete in the National Science Fair, a prestigious event that could change their lives. The National Science Fair was held in Indianapolis, and it was a world away from the small town of Colwood. For the Rocket Boys, it was a chance to showcase their work on a national stage. They traveled to the fair with high hopes, knowing that this was their moment to shine. At the fair, they presented their rockets and explained their project to the judges and visitors. The competition was tough, with students from all over the country presenting their work. But the Rocket Boys stood out for their creativity, determination, and the quality of their rockets. Their project drew a lot of attention, and the boys received praise and recognition from scientists, engineers, and educators. The judges were particularly impressed by the fact that the boys had built their rockets with limited resources and little formal training. They admired the boys' ingenuity and the progress they had made through sheer determination and hard work. The Rocket Boys won a top prize at the National Science Fair, a triumph that opened doors to scholarships and opportunities for all of them. Back in Colwood, the boys' success began to change people's attitudes. The town that had once doubted them now celebrated their achievements. The Rocket Boys became local heroes, and their story inspired others to dream big. Even Homer's father, who had been so skeptical, started to see the value in what his son had accomplished. John Hickam began to understand that Homer's passion for rocketry wasn't just a hobby, it was a path to a different future, one that didn't involve the mines. Homer's growing success also brought a change in how others treated him. People who had once dismissed him or looked down on him now wanted to be associated with him. They saw that Homer was destined for something greater, and they wanted to be a part of his journey. It was a strange feeling for Homer, who had spent much of his life as just another boy from a mining town. Now, he was someone who had the potential to be famous, someone who could leave Colwood and make a name for himself in the wider world. The success at the National Science Fair was just the beginning for Homer. The scholarship he won allowed him to go to college, where he studied engineering. Homer eventually achieved his dream of working for NASA, contributing to the very space program that had inspired him as a boy. His journey from a small coal mining town to NASA was a remarkable story of perseverance, hard work, and the power of dreams. The story is a powerful reminder that dreams can come true, even in the most unlikely of places. It's about the importance of believing in yourself, even when others doubt you. It's about the value of hard work, persistence, and the willingness to learn from failure. And it's about the support and encouragement that can come from unexpected places, like a dedicated teacher or a mentor who believes in your potential.